How did you do it, Mr. Eku Wand?
Well, I was lucky that at high school I had a teacher who was a graphic designer. So that meant that the homework we got had something to do with calligraphy and first approach towards fonts and design and layout to create a brochure in my high school diploma. And I had the feeling this is really something that I like to force and look deeper into. And luckily, my first girlfriend I met was coming from Berlin, and she was just starting to study graphic design. So I had a very soft entry into this. And after I finished high school, I moved to Berlin and started to study visual communication at the HBK, today Berlin University of Arts. And that's how it started. And my first professor was letting me do anything I wanted, and I had the feeling I need more guidance. And I switched to another professor at that time, but he was not dealing with computer graphics at all. I mean, computer graphics was not a big topic. We just had Mr. Wagenknecht, and he was into animation film and had also two Amigas in his workshop. And so I was curious, what can we do with this? And with my friends together, we had just invested together in a small computer and just coding a little bit basic and writing our own paint program. And I created my first business cards and photographed them for the music business, because I want to impress Jim Rakete at that time that I'm doing something new and that I could think about creating also a more virtual stage and things like that. And so I deepened this and started to focus on animation and made very basic groundwork and had a good foundation understanding pixels at that time, what it was. And resolution was an issue because we had just 320 by 240 pixels. And I mean, look at the screen today. This is just, the size of a stamp or thumbnail on a computer. And that was all we had. And there was also no big memory available. That meant you don't have an external hard drive or anything. We just stored all the data on floppy disk. So my whole graduation at university was stored on 64 floppy disk, and I had 1 megabyte of RAM to work with. So these limitations led to more creativity because you have to improve, and what you cannot show, you have to find other ways of storytelling, because you not only have the image, you also have audio. And because I had a band and played in a band and I was a singer and I was used to create sounds and use my own voice, I created different pieces at that time and recorded that to a videotape with Umatic and Betacam, which was also a challenge because you could only record 1 frame at a time. Of course, you could have recorded real time, but if you want to cut 2.5 minutes video, you couldn't record the whole sequence on a computer. The sequences on the computer probably were just 2 to 4 seconds maximum. So I had to consider how each cut was designed and fit on the other one. And of course, mixing with real image and copying this in without green screen and other improvements. We created ourselves, and even our recorder was programmed that he just recorded 1 frame by frame. But because I did a very experimental work about an Austrian poet, Ernst Jandl, and his concrete poetry, and syncing this with audio was also an issue. You have your earplugs and you listen to the audio before, and then you have to record frame by frame. In a 2.5 minutes video, I haven't yet calculated it, but I had before, but I forgot. It's a ton of pictures. It took me 6 weeks to just create this 2.5 minutes, and to have it in sync, I had to focus very precisely on the audio, because you only have one try, and if a sequence is wrong, you have to go back and record. And of course, because it's tape, analog, you have dropouts, the quality is losing, and because you don't want to cut these things too much, it was a lot of pre-calculation how to get things done. And so in the end, my graduation work was poems of Ernst Jandl. And as you can see, this is still my traditional graduation work, which is printed, but also has some graphics in it. And they were printed as good as possible at that time. Yeah, I think there's a little more in here. See, so this was very simple start and beginning. But as I said, all the animation was stored on floppy disk, and lucky I still have this box. I was not aware that I would show it once to someone. So every 2 seconds of animation are stored on floppy disk. So I think in this box has some 60 floppy disks. Of course, they have no use. It's just more like, you know, memories and antique. You can't work with it unless you have a simulator software or something. And of course, some printed stuff was generated later on. I experimented also with some generative software and animating these mouses over larger spaces, and yeah, that is how the whole thing started for me with animation and computer graphics.
Au, Eise, raus, weh, Zelle, liege, G, Ecke, liege, G, Ecke, liege, ops, shh.
I knew that with the initial work that I have done in my graduation work in 1989, that this had still the potential to go further and develop it on a new level. So a few years back, I had some time and used processing software and digitized again those old pictures from the floppy disk. We managed to take over, and Photoshop is just having this size on the screen, to make it, to give it a new framing, and just increase the number in the matrix, and having random conversations or randomly opening of mouses here in sync with a poem of Ernst Jandl. Of course, we could have done other stuff as well, but I thought, oh, there's so much potential. If I would have more time, I would do an installation with this where you stand in between big screens and then you're confronted with a dialogue or some other stuff that is not coming from this poet. Maybe some recordings with, you know, strangers, with just foreign languages. That could be anything, because as a singer in a band, I was always fascinated by experimenting with voice, using voice as an instrument, and this could be a perfect installation. And of course, I did this also for mobile, and then had the same thing going on a mobile. So as you can see, that's due to processing. Completely new approach, but it hasn't done by anybody else, and because it's my initial foundation, I can still do it, maybe in Bali. By the end of 1989, I finished and was looking for a job. At the site, I sent my videotape to different festivals, but didn't hear anything quickly. At that time, you did not have the internet where you can easily send in your videotape. You always have to make a copy, pay for it, go to the post office and send it, and maybe 2 months later you hear something or not. So, but I did. And of course, I got some respect from some colleagues. And later on, I think it was 1990 and 91, I was awarded at the Precursor Electronica and also at the Imagina in France, as well as the SIGGRAPH Theater. My piece was shown, which I was really proud, but of course I always heard about this later. Some people reported, Eku, you have won the award and I will bring it to you. So at this time I was just finishing my study, did not have the budget and didn't know that things were going on. At the same time, in 1991, while Art & Com was already established for 2 years, and of course I was in touch with a few people of Art & Com because they worked together with HBK, and I was also studying at that time at my colleague Professor Uli Planck, and I knew that they were doing interesting work between programming, installation, and looking for new perspectives. But I had the feeling multimedia is something they are not interested. I don't know, my contacts were not deepened, and at that point I just started in an ad agency at Hohenzollern-Damm, Soft Factory, and we were asked to develop an animated program on the Macintosh, which runs in a TV station on a channel where during the nighttime there was not much radio program, and we used to create these animations with Macromedia Director at that time. And so we created the first animated video program in a terrestrial station in Berlin from the Macintosh. And at that time, I had already switched to the Mac while I was working on Amiga before, and I remember it was really funny because at the beginning the Mac was just black and white, and I was always running to the computer store in Berlin, HSD at that time, and asking, when is the Mac with color? When is the color coming? I want to switch from Amiga to the Macintosh. And at that time it just happened, and this awesome software in parallel to HyperCard, where you completely start a new thinking to extend the opportunities on how to retrieve data and information, not in a linear way, but in a hyperlink way. And this can not only be still images or text, it can also be audio, film, and anything. And you can also start other activities, and the screen is displaying something to you. What you see here is a Macintosh PowerBook 100 ADC, which was the first color version of a PowerBook from Apple. It's heavy in weight, and as you can see, all the connectors and plugs at that time, it's unbelievable that these were necessary to combine or to connect this with a CD-ROM drive or even a printer or slide scanner or any other devices. And while it's mounting in the background, while I'm showing you this, we used the software Macromedia Director to produce our first CD-ROMs. It was very well known, and it was a privilege to work for Apple Computer at that time and to produce one of the very first multimedia CD-ROMs for Apple Computer. The annual computer fair CeBIT in Hanover was in about 3 months to go, and Apple asked us if we could produce a CD-ROM for them with an overview about 20 German multimedia production companies. Well, it was not very much time given, but we did our best, and actually it was my first piece that I produced as a director. We were also filming together with an actor, and the crew was about 3-4 people working on this, programming it, and also doing the design work, where you see QuickTime 1.0 was just launched. That's why you see also the logo in the background. And this is the size, maybe, I don't know, 180 by 120 or a little larger.
but the whole screen size is 640 by 480. So that was what was possible as digital video on a screen. These, it's not bigger than a stamp. And we produced these videos to give an overview about the application through audio and video.
Grundsätzlich ist alles, was rot blinkt, eine aktive Taste. Hier unten haben wir 3 aktive Felder. Zum ersten die Anwendungsbereiche, über die Sie schnell zu den einzelnen Multimedia.
So all the graphic user interface components he is explaining and gives an overview, so you can always touch here on the screen to get him back. He's a digital, like a digital avatar, actually. Yes.
Klicken Sie einfach hier drauf und ich helfe Ihnen weiter. Also dann, viel Spaß. Lassen Sie mal sehen. Ja. Hier rechts von mir haben wir ein Rollbalkenfenster mit dem Verzeichnis der Multimedia-Firmen. Wie das funktioniert, ist bekannt. Wenn Sie sich für eine Firma interessieren, klicken Sie einmal auf dieselbe und schon erfahren Sie mehr. Ist doch ganz einfach, oder? Jetzt haben Sie ein Bild von der Firma, die Sie angewählt haben.
I think it was 1995 when multimedia became the buzzword of the year, 5 years after we already working in this. And in 1991 I founded my first company, Pixelpark, to focus just on multimedia kiosk systems and other solutions, while I had the feeling this is something I could do with my experience. While high-end 3D animation at that time was quite expensive, you need a lot of expensive equipment, and even the Mac, standard Mac or a good Mac, was 15,000 Deutschmarks at that time, a lot of money compared to today. This was something I could find a niche and develop something. I have an idea that this could be a business and this could lead to new opportunities in the future. When I started the company, suddenly I got news, yes, your animation was played again of this festival in Europe, in Hungary, in Brazil, in Australia, in New York. It won another award on the New York festivals and others followed. So until today, I think my piece was played 150 times or on festivals. I mean, on festivals alone, and also Centre Pompidou bought a piece for their collection. And I thought, wow, this is all coming together with the founding of my company. I was overwhelmed. I couldn't keep touch with every contact because it was so much. And I was so busy also with developing my own company. We started with 2 people, and within 2 years we were 30 people, and the growing was going on. But I left my company because I had another idea how to focus my work, because the business approach was good. We were really welcomed in all bigger companies to present multimedia, and we felt ourselves like ambassadors for this technology. We had always a computer in the trunk of our car and driving to Hamburg or to the Cologne area, to Frankfurt, to Munich, and present this to ad agencies because they didn't know what is a touchscreen. And although you told them you can touch on the screen, they were scared and stand in front, and the screen is something you shouldn't touch, and no. So it took a while until people understood what it's good for. Either it's for a museum or for a brand experience in a store. The internet was not developed or not as far developed that we could use it as a business model. This did come by the end of the 19th, but I left the company before to focus on the development on CD-ROMs. My wish would come true because I got hired by Bertelsmann to develop an interactive game. So it's not a computer game, but it's something in between. So it has a structure of a game, but I thought, no, I want to combine fiction and faction and make it an educational adventure. And this meant I had to spend time on thinking in diverse directions. On one side, standard film production is linear, while interactive production is multilinear. So the player must have the opportunity to switch between different characters and see side activities which all lead together to the main action. So dramaturgy and all the tricks that the cameraman and the director can use, because they put the frame into the center where the viewer should watch, while in an interactive space where you can turn around and do different things. People should not get too distracted by all these opportunities, but have the feeling, wow, this is more enriching. It's kind of a virtual world where you're not focused only to see what the director have decided that you see. And therefore, dramaturgy can go up and down depending on the cleverness of the player. Because if he's going in the wrong path, he probably will be disappointed. So it is also a challenge to create the dramaturgy, likewise, to get them back on track, the viewer, so they don't lose their interest. So actually, this was something where a lot of people were thinking this is the future, because it could be a substitute maybe for books or something. While I would say I was never seen it as a substitute, I was seeing it as an enrichment to something a book and a film can't do. But mixing the experience of storytelling, especially interactive storytelling, what it was becoming then, meant to learn traditional rules. I hadn't studied film before. I wish I had, because then I probably would be faster at that time. But maybe it was good because I was, I was not having a foundation that give me a paradigm that I say, no, a film, this cannot be done. A film is always like this. So maybe my naive approach at that time was good, because I was not frightened to try it. And of course, I also made mistakes. But in the end, I finished my first production, Berlin Connection, which is the crime thriller story about the falling of the Berlin Wall. The production took me 4.5 to 5 years. Also with 25 actors and a programming company, because director was not suitable for this challenge. And we coded our own software. I learned to code so that I could show the programmers much easier what I need. So all this took time and a lot of energy also myself. But I finished the product by the end of the 19th and had a very excellent cooperation with Berlin Tagesspiegel, because they also helped me with the distribution, because I published the whole product also on myself. So from doing the script writing with a good friend who never done this before. The two of us, we had a lot of sessions going through the script in all the multilinear branches and how they get together, to the production itself. I think it was a Casio something camera. We shoot a lot of filming, and then we digitized still image footage from this imagery so that we have consistency for the storytelling. Of course, sometimes we put in collage pictures from the wall and other venues that did not exist anymore, and we touched this together to give the player a feeling that he would just be in Berlin at that time in November when the wall came down. And this is something in still image you can retouch it with Photoshop at that time, but filming, we did not have the budget. I mean, our first production, due to the support and the engagement of Bertelsmann, I think it had a total of 1 million Deutschmark at that time. But what happened close to the final of the product, the Bertelsmann company get bankrupt. So I couldn't publish immediately. The product went to another company. I had to wait until I offered them a deal to buy back the rights for a reasonable price. And it was not the amount of 600,000 or something. So I made a good deal and went to a bank and took a credit from the bank and finished the product and then published it on myself. So I had a lot of experience also with publishing itself and doing all, the cover design, the posters. We put the posters in the Berlin subway. We tried this. We made a treasure hunt in Berlin as a special activity. And I also had a crime thriller author from East Berlin, where we produced the second part of Berlin Connection as a novel. So that was very unusual, having the first part as a CD-ROM and the second part as a novel, all meant to create something that helps distribution. Nevertheless, it was very difficult because the dot-com crisis arose and money was short. It was said CD-ROM is out, while I was just done with my first CD-ROM. I said, what? It's over. You spent so much time for it and now it should be over. So that's why we invested in these side activities. I invested in these side activities to have more opportunities to get into press and have articles, that we also have a novel and that's continuing the story. And this way, at least, I could sold 12,000 pieces, which is, in comparison to a successful book author, you talk about 5,000 copies, is a good approach in Germany. So I was happy with 12,000. At least I could gain all the money back that I have invested for credit and rights and other stuff that we had to invest at that time. And by the end of 2000, I made a second CD-ROM about bunkers and tunnels in Berlin with the Berlin Underground Association, where I'm a member now since more than 20 years. And we had also very interesting production, typical for Berlin. And it was a continuing approach after Berlin Connection was done. So 2 titles having to deal with history in Berlin. This production was much faster. It took us about 9 months plus minus, and maybe only 5 people. And we also sold 10,000 copies of this one, again with Tagesspiegel. And up today I was asked, do you have any copies? I say, yes, I have, but can you run it on your machine? That is the difficult point today. Of course, there's some videos existing and people made some walkthroughs, and recently I just found out, oh wow, somebody had made a Wikipedia page about Berlin Connection. How cool is that? Of course, there are some things they got a little bit wrong from German articles, so maybe someday somebody will correct this. But I was proud of it. See, you have created something not many people have approached in Germany. Of course, there were a lot of other CD-ROMs out there, either computer games or other content-related magazines and stuff. It was a really incredible time. I remember the magazine Screen Multimedia from Hamburg. Their chief editor approached me, and I wrote a series for the magazine, and it was really a very vivid time. Prince made a CD-ROM, David Bowie made a CD-ROM, and you were always looking for other idols or other prototypes or even blueprints where other authors are producing something. So when I started, I couldn't do much research because there wasn't any product. So actually, I think it was a great help at that time that there wasn't so many things to see, because this way I was forced to work on myself. And I wasn't afraid, because if it hasn't done anybody before and you can be the first, of course, it's a risk, but risk is, you can only be innovative if you take a risk, and that's simple.
To illustrate, when it comes to artwork, at these times when I was producing my first CD-ROM amateur, we had to consider a lot of different things. I mean, you know, what we think, what we start with is just a simple single CD in a box like this. And of course, in terms of marketing, people want to have a bigger box in the shelves. So actually you have to design a box around it and some postcards, and there's a CD, and then it turned out that the volume and the amount of data were so heavy that we had 2 CD-ROMs in the end. I wonder how we had made the first one. I can't remember. And these boxes, of course, then have much more room in the shelves in terms of marketing. But of course, we were experimenting with different formats as well, as you can see. So a lot of work went into this production until it comes to a final super jewel box, which is the deluxe version in competition. And it has 2 CDs on top of each other with a postcard. And the postcard was actually marketing a crime thriller story that is the second part of Berlin Connection, which I had worked with a Berlin author, crime thriller writer from East Berlin, and we took this as additional marketing instruments. One of the things you also have to think about is that a CD-ROM with a game on it, it has some rules, and of course it has a graphic user interface. You have to explain how to go through this. It's not like a film production where you just sit in front and start the movie. You have to read some things and get some clues before you can start. So this is something that usually accompanies a CD-ROM production. So therefore, it's much more complex in production, and you have to think from print to digital to audio to film and back.
Nazi-Deutschland ist geschlagen. Der Zweite Weltkrieg nach furchtbaren Opfern beendet. Deutschland wird von den 4 alliierten Siegermächten der Sowjetunion, Großbritannien...
And it goes through the intro, and then later on it goes, let us maybe go to Berlin, because in here you have a better understanding how pictures were put together. We are here in Kreuzberg at the Heinrichplatz, and we have to explore the surrounding, because later on you have a conversation here with one of the smugglers and you have to make a deal with him. But before you can start, you have to explore more and more about Berlin and meet some other strangers and people that are important in the later scene play. So it just gives you an idea how to navigate, open the map, jumping to different positions. We did not have Google at that time, so it looked maybe primitive, but it hadn't been done before in that way. And you have in the interface also a camera to take pictures, and so when you hear the noise, you should take a picture, and you maybe explore it and then make a picture, close the camera, and it continues. And you have a Walkman for information in here, and a suitcase with your inventory. And these were the small things that, yeah, for an adventure game you need, an inventory, of course. And it does not have the full gameplay in it. It's just the starting sequel, and the guy who recorded that, I had contact with him, he wanted to record the other sections because the whole playtime is about 19 hours if you linear play it right away without any stopping and solving puzzles. So that meant that in comparison to a 90 minutes video, the amount of content you have to generate, that it lasts you 19 hours to play to the final end. And that's a complete different approach and a complete different amount of media you have to prepare. Of course, some of the things you have atmosphere loops and ambient sound and stuff like that. But the dialogues in this game are 90 minutes pure. That means a Hollywood movie where you have just constant conversation over 90 minutes. So it doubles and triples the amount of media that are needed to do such a project. Okay, here we have another documentary done by someone else. He speaks English.
Today we're going to play Berlin Connection on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was yesterday actually. Today I'm recording this is the 10th of November. So this game I wanted to play for a long time, but I think now is the perfect time to play this game. It's an educational adventure game that takes place well around the time of the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, and it continues. It also shows the beginning of this, and also there's a black market here. We have time travels in a newspaper, and you just visiting the black market, and you can
Porcelain for coffee.
Exchange things. And we also playing in these scenes. If we just go back in this scene, you see me. So it's really Mr. Hitchcock, how have you done this? Let me see. I was just have to stop it before.
So he's trading.
No, come on. I'm in the background with my ex-wife.
So we're going to
or
trade with
today
him.
ex-wife. And we could get other goods for the watch that we are wearing.
Hier, gucken Sie mal, wie geht damit? Gut, ich bin einverstanden.
Okay, so we've just traded in our watch for this silverware. Okay, and now we can trade with the people that are lined up there in the back. So
Können Sie haben, aber nur gegen Kaffee.
so she's trading, I guess it's porcelain for coffee. He's
Haushaltsartikel, Bücher.
So he's trading.
Für ein paar Flaschen Bier.
He's trading books and writing utensils.
Aber nur gegen was Alkoholisches.
For alcohol.
Hemden, Schuhe, Kinderkleidung.
We're going to leave for the moment. I think we can go back at any point. So by the way, yeah, we're in Schlossstraße, where the Schloss Charlottenburg is. Okay, and when we'll come back, folks, we will continue to play Berlin Connection. So until next time, until then.
Yeah, here we go. Here's the Wikipedia page. And the good thing is that if you're the owner of the copyright of the cover, which I have, then I could upload a perfect image also, so that for later generations they really can see what it is and not having a pixelized image or photographed badly or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting to see that this made it, and a lot of references as well. So I said, oh wow, that was really a pioneering piece. So if people had done that, you see this is Web 2.0. It's a little bit small in size, but still when we did the programming for this CD-ROM, we put some of the screenshots on screen and try to give an idea what the CD-ROM in Berlin and bunkers is all about. I never had redone this because it's so much work, and as it's not sold anymore, it's just, you know, an archive, so to speak, with some of the imagery, where you get an idea, because we had here the map in from different times, and over the interface you could access different spots around Potsdamer Platz, and it's changing after the Second World War. You see Berlin has changed, but you can still access the bunkers in the underground that we put together until the new Potsdamer Platz is rebuilt with modern construction, and all these old places in the underground still accessible through our Berlin Underground Association. And that's what the CD-ROM is all about, bunkers surrounding Potsdamer Platz. And yeah, it's a time travel, it's a time journey in the underground, so to speak. I was looking for funding in Berlin, and I remember I was going to Babelsberg and Potsdam and presented my idea to directors, to filmmakers, but I had the feeling they don't understand what I'm looking for, and they couldn't switch in their way of storytelling to a non-linear storytelling. And because funding was so hard to get, while film funding They got millions, and I was asking maybe for 500,000 for a start with the CD-ROM production. It was almost impossible. So at that point I gave up, because I said, I have proven this myself. For me, I don't have to prove it in front of myself. And if I can't get a funding, I cannot set up a new company in this direction. I was asked to teach for 2 semesters in Cologne at the KHM. Then, as soon as I finished, I was approached again by the Bauhaus University in Weimar. And I thought, wow, what a challenge. Okay, of course, I taught my expertise in interactive storytelling. And by the time I finished Weimar, I thought, okay, now it's time to set up a new office in Berlin and continue what you want to. But then I got approached again from Braunschweig. And that is where I'm teaching now since 25 years, multimedia, media design. And I remember we were starting with Macromind, or it was called Director later on, and then it was Adobe Director. Yeah, that is how I started. During my teaching, I had also ups and downs with media. CD-ROM was dead, the internet was coming. For me, it was like a full break. I had learned for about 8 years, almost 10 years, how to do interactive stuff, and that's what I wanted to teach, but the medium was not available anymore. There was no market. I mean, we did a few CD-ROMs to the students at that time, but the internet was approaching, and I remember when I came to HBK in 1998, they asked me if I could help with the design of the homepage. I had not much experience at that time with the homepage, but I found out, yeah, you have always to squeeze your data, and it's not animated as I wish it was before Web 2.0. So I was not really spoiled by the internet in a way, and I thought, where should we go? End of 2000, when was it? 7, 8, 9. So, yeah, Facebook. When Facebook came out, I thought, okay, maybe this is something new where I can pioneer again and try what I can adapt and adopt from the things that I've learned before, because it looked a little better. It was Internet 2.0, and more data could be handled in a web browser. And even this led me to a new chapter of my experiences where I put my power into social media campaigning. I went 4 years to Indonesia and lived there and founded a social media marketing and management agency, because I needed a break from teaching in Braunschweig. I needed new ideas, and Indonesia is such a positive, disruptive energy pool for me. Not talking now about the history of Indonesia, but there is so much to see, and that gave me the approach for the social media campaigning, because we helped an island and the population on an island to overcome an illegal mining operation, and therefore I orchestrated all social media channels and developed a design for them, also some analog posters and stuff. And of course, working together with remote people that I've never seen before, whether they speak Indonesian, English, German, or scuba divers from other countries. And after 7, 8 years, we really had won this campaign through out 5 lawsuits that we had initiated with crowdfunding and online petitioning. But because I'm not an activist by nature, I just wanted to leave it like it is, and I had a lot of experience. I also learned how to code WordPress and create homepages at that time. So this was something I could also do during teaching and go with the flow from multimedia to the internet to social media. By the time I returned to HBK, there was a new era starting, which actually wasn't completely new to me, but virtual reality came again in the third episode, so to speak. The first episode was in the 90s, where we had huge installations with a cave and projectors, also very expensive in production and creation. Then we had Second Life, which was the second era when online virtual reality worlds were established. But there was also a lot of knowledge necessary, and it was not easy to install, and it was a little bit too nerdy for average users. But now, in the after 2015, the new challenge was really having virtual reality in a web browser with an easy approach. You just type in your email address, you create an avatar, you customize your avatar, and you're in. You can talk to people like in a Zoom conference. You can visit exhibitions. You can gather together. You can have meetings. You can have simulations of complex 3D engines or other stuff. And that led me to the idea to create a virtual museum for cultural heritage in Indonesia, because Indonesia does not have many physical, existent, well-equipped museums. And education on a very playful way is a good combination, where my multimedia experience pops up again, 30 years of experience, bringing this together with nonlinear ways of information, education, but also in a playful environment, in a narrative environment, so to speak. And we started a prototype for a cultural heritage online VR museum called Mumain, Museum Maya Indonesia. We now apply for funding. We have created a prototype with a main hall and side halls. And the good thing is that a lot of my adventures I had in Indonesia, whether going in a jungle expedition to Papua or having friends, an expert in boat building in Indonesia who's living 40 years in Indonesia, or a French archaeologist who went on an expedition with another lecturer that I'm in touch. At that time, they went visiting the cave paintings in central Borneo and recorded this already with photogrammetry. And nowadays, photogrammetry is a good addition in these virtual environments. So you don't have only artificial 3D created environments. You put, again, pictures inside, audio inside, put an atmosphere in it. You have interactive hotspots, text, speech, multi-language, video, and photogrammetric recorded 3D objects and statues. And that's something where I said, wow, this is multimedia 3.0 for me. And now I can do 3D animation, because this is something I stopped when I left university in Berlin to focus on multimedia. So actually it's a big loop, 35 years, getting back also to 3D creation, because at that time it was only possible in 1989, it was possible on big machines. Now you can do it on your laptop, and the Unreal Engine and Unity and also the online editors are just perfect tools. If you have a concept, if you have an idea, you can do it at home and don't need a computer like a garage. And I'm really thankful also to one of the pioneers in 3D animation, Rolf Herken from Mental Images, because at that time, after my graduation, I applied for a job and he said, Eku, you can do more, go for multimedia. And I have to be very thankful, because he pushed me in the right direction. Otherwise, I would be maybe an expert for dinosaur animation at ILM today. I don't know. But it turned out like this, and I'm super happy that I can work in this direction. And just recently I became a creative director of a new company in UK, where we develop our own virtual reality software, and I'm responsible for developing a unique graphic user interface, as well streamlining the workflow for the production process, giving advice to the programmers what we need from the author or from the curator of an exhibition, because I have in mind in a few years that our museum becomes the first virtual museum really in Indonesia, because there's so much content in Indonesia to see and develop, and I combine my eagerness and my curiosity traveling to remote places in Indonesia and bring it to a museum. And being with an avatar in this museum, this is a very playful approach. Teenagers, schoolers, even students like it. You can gather there, have lectures and all this. So we bring the museum to the island, rather flying in the students to the large museums in Jakarta or Bandung or other cities, because these people probably don't have the budget even to take a journey to one of the bigger cities. So I hope this is a match with the younger generation in Indonesia, as well with the education system, and for us as curious and very engaged producers to bring our expertise together with my colleague Oli Planck again, that we at the age while leaving university having the first professor start up together now.
I want to talk about the MUMINE, the Museum Maya Indonesia. I want to summarize the result.
Where we have built temples that you can access with your avatar here in the Borobudur in Yogyakarta. You can really walk inside.
Simulate this now.
And with your avatar, you can explore the reliefs on the wall. Because we also have an expert, Professor Titus Leber from Vienna. He spent 4 years in recording the temple. These are not the images, this is just the prototype. But we work together with other experts to make it really a reliable source, that it's not just Disneyland and entertaining when you walk through the temple. And we have different other topics here. They are all together in this main hall in the museum, which we now will see. I will demonstrate this because it's already further developed. You have an avatar, and with the avatar, that is my little figure here in this scenery, I can explore the main hall of the museum and just walk with WASD keys, as one is used in computer games, either faster or slower, and then read all the introduction here on the wall, click on some of the pictures on the wall, can zoom in these things and continue walking. Sorry, here is continue walking, and this is a bug of the programmer. This should not overlap with the background image, otherwise I cannot close it. And we have here a lot of different media assets. As I said before, multimedia 3.0. Here we have, with photogrammetry, recorded little statues from Sumba in Indonesia. They are carved either in bone or in wood. And they all have their stories, and they all come with traditions that you can read here on the walls. Read the background.
Different media are combined to give the best representation of a topic. And of course, you see there's a diversity in fonts, in use. We as the curators and creators of this museum have to find a final way on how to display everything. But in collaboration with the students, which worked on the topic and did a fantastic job, we have a lot of new questions how to best represent the content, and it is still in a process of analyzing and searching, as this whole technology is not yet used on a very broad level. Of course, there's a lot of technical issues that we have to solve.
While I retire from university, as I said, I have already a startup with my colleague, but my plan is a little bit bigger. We're gonna bring German and international students of fine art design, theater and music to Bali for a semester abroad program. I have a cooperation with Easy Denpasar, Institut Seni Indonesia, and they have on their agenda to preserve Balinese cultures and tradition exclusively. This is really an IP that you won't find at many other places on the planet, and Bali per se is a good example for our world. It's a world in a nutshell, and they have the same cultural problems, society problems, and also environmental programs. So that's why I decided to make a program with 4 pillars, which are culture, nature, society, and environment. So students have to write a draft first and apply before they can start applying for the whole program, because we want to make sure that we find the best observer, accompanying professor for them, covering one of the 4 topics, because one semester is pretty short, so to speak, and because you have so many things to see only in Bali, that we want really to have a good result and giving the people an opportunity to come back with this experience another culture, not only going there for holiday, but living within. I arrange artist talks with local artists, whether it's carvers, sculptors, painters. I was just recently invited for a full Ramayana show. Ramayana is a traditional theater piece with about 50, 60 actors, big gamelan orchestra, and they were just celebrating. They have a lot of holy holidays they are going to celebrate and rituals, and we were about 80 people in a private campus and invited to see how the artists are get painted and get their costumes on, and we marched all together to the big theater and see the performance, which was lasting 3 hours, starting at 10, 11 in the night, and I was the only white person within, and I thought, he's opening his house, and he said, Eku, you can bring your students, and we show how we do this, and they can learn, and we can learn. And then, I mean, this is really an intercultural communication. I think this is an experience students would love. And those students that I have sent to Indonesia, not only in Bali, they all came back and said, Eku, this is the best experience I could have done, because I have to rethink what I want to do with my creativity in my life. Yeah, you're wondering what you see all the custom of Gene Simmons of KISS in the background. What has it to do with me? Well, in the last few years I just discovered that KISS has an IP which is interesting to extend, and with my Bali connection I was very inventive, creating an extension of the story of KISS, where demons are born and where you have fires, breathing dragons and volcanoes and all this stuff, and that led me to this sculpture which is actually a letter opener with a sword that Gene Simmons used for fire breathing. Recently a book was published with KISS fan stories. I have a carver in Indonesia, and he is making this beautiful mask in wood for me, because the initial idea is giving the 4 members of KISS a new appearance, inspired by Balinese barong dance, which is a lion dance, and all these masks actually coming from lions, and I just applied the makeup of KISS, and they liked it, and so I thought, wow, I have some other things in preparation I can't talk with, but as you have noticed and heard that I'm in multimedia again, you can imagine I have something in my suitcase.